Hello everyone, it's your boy Roz Live. We're going to talk about a sensitive topic, but a topic that needs to be talked about. Now, as you know, I'm a gamer. This is a gaming channel. I do news, I do walkthroughs, things like that. And as YouTubers, you're kind of, it's like an untold rule to just stay away from these type of topics and just political things, because everybody has their own view and everybody has an opinion. And it's okay, everybody has a view, and the opinions are great. Everybody has their own view and their own opinion about things. And it's not one thing is right and not one thing is correct. But I feel like there's some things on my chest that I need to get off, and I want to educate the people on what's going on, and just get some things off my chest. I promise I won't make a habit of this. I won't just keep making videos about things like this, because as I said, it's too much biasness and too many different views and stuff, and I don't want to create any arguments or create any attention when it comes to politics and the news and things that goes on in the world that are pretty much ugly. So without further ado, let's get into this. The truth about gun control. So as we all know, a recent tragedy just happened in Oregon. The media decided not to, state his name, and I'm gonna go with that too. I'm not gonna say his name. We're gonna see how well that goes. I mean, sometimes I feel like it's necessary to tell people their names, but for this case, it seems like that's what what everybody decides they want to agree on to do. Is you don't want to give people the idea that, hey, I'm going into history books if I commit such a heinous crime. So, I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to get a lot of, news, and everybody's going to cover me and it's going to make me popular. So for this video, I'm not going to state the name. We're just going to tell you what happened. As you know, there was a shooting that happened in Oregon at a college, and a lot of people died, and it's a tragedy, and it's not common. It's something that's been going on for it seems like now it's starting to become common, because at one time these type of tragedies was very uncommon, but now it seems like every other month or so we get a new shooting. And if you think about it, they're covering everything, and the recent shooting was a school. We already had a couple of school shootings. It seems like little kids are dying, elderly black folks are dying from the church massacre, little kids from the Sandy Hook. It's just a massacre, just a shooting after a shooting after a shooting. And I just want people to really understand what's going on and how to view. And when I bring all this information to you, I want you can make your own judgment. I'm not here to sway anything or make you make a decision or whatever. This is just to bring information and give you awareness to what's going on. So the first things first, understanding political languages. Now, the president, whenever something happens, the first thing he says is common sense gun laws. And the phrase common sense, it's tricky. Like I said, you have to really understand political language to understand exactly the trickiness behind politics. And this is why I don't like politics. I don't like to talk about it. I don't really like getting into it, but you kind of have to, because it's a little dirty game. So when a president says things like common sense laws, it's like his way his way of, blaming the public, making us feel incompetent because it's our fault for why this happened. He would get on there, he would make a speech, and he would say, see, if we had common sense laws, this type of thing wouldn't happen. And to me, that's just low, and that's just dirty, and you shouldn't, I hate that phrase, common sense laws, because there's nothing common. There's no common sense in these common sense proposed laws, put it that way, as you say. And you have to understand, politics is always, it's a dirty game. They always make it seem like it's easy, and it's just, this is straightforward within the title, like common sense gun laws. It's just, straightforward, but it's really complicated, and it's really not as common as you think. For example, the Freedom Act is not really about freedom. The Patriot Act, there's nothing patriotic about the Patriot Act. These are things that you need to be aware of when it comes to politics. They're liars. They're great liars. It's all a game. It's an illusion. All these guys do is keep the agenda going. Doesn't really matter who's president. Doesn't matter if your president's a female. Doesn't matter if it's black. Doesn't matter if he's white. The agenda will always be the same. There's just a new face that's just there taking the glory and taking the blame for everything and getting the praises for things. Let's just get that, out the way so people will understand what's going on and not just jump to conclusions when you hear things being proposed by, the president or just any politician in general. Now, common sense laws. What these laws are going after, what's going on. It's essentially going after the Second Amendment. So let's talk about the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution protects the rights of the people to keep and bear arms and was adopted on December 15, 1971 as part of the first 10 amendments contained in the Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment was based partially on the right to keep and bear arms, and the English common law was influenced by the English Bill of Rights of 1689. Sir William Blackstone described this right as an auxiliary right supporting the natural rights of self-defense, resistance to oppression, and the civil duty to act on concert in defense of the state. So that's what the Second Amendment is about. Now, in early English settlers in America viewed the right to bear arms or the right to bear arms and or the state military as important for one or more of these purposes: enabling the people to organize a military system, participating in law enforcement, deterring tyrannical government, and we're going to come back to that one, repelling invasion, suppressing infrastructure, allegedly including slave revolts, facilitating a natural right of self-defense. Those are the things that were in the minds of our founding fathers when America was essentially created. These are laws, the views that they had in mind when creating the Bill of Rights and having our amendments in our Constitution. This is what the mindset was. Now, why I said we're going to come back to tyrannical government. So what does that mean? What is tyrannical? What is tyranny? What does all that means? A tyrant. Let's look up the definition for that. It is an absolute ruler, unrestrained by law or constitution, or one who has usurped the legitimate sovereignty. A tyrant usually controls almost everything and is considered a ruler of horrible and oppressive character, even in spite of governing a free state according to just laws. So that's what a tyrant. Sounds scary, sounds spooky, doesn't it? Yes, that's something that does exist, people. It happens throughout history. It has happened, and this is a Greek word, so this is nothing new. History repeats itself, people. So how are tyrants formed? In ancient Greek, the tyrants was influential opportunists that came to power by securing the support of different fractions of a deme. Now, how do we put that into present day era? Influential opportunists, what the ancient Greeks called them. So what are those people you think, fits that description in America? Politicians. Politicians influence the public. You pick a politician who you want to side. When it comes to president, you're either a Democrat or you're a Republican. You pick who you want to rule the nation. But at the same time, these people have a great deal of influential power. Whatever they say goes. They don't ask the people for permission, if you notice. The president doesn't say, hey, you know what? Let's see what the people have to say about going to war, No presidents in the past, they don't say, hey, you know what, let's have a vote. Everybody go to the polls, and if you fail, raise your hand, or raise your hand and say, hey, you know what, yes, you want to go to war, no, you don't want to go to war. It doesn't work that way. They handle all that. They make the decisions. We have no say. So all we do is vote for them in, and they pretty much handle everything for us, and we let them control everything. That's how it comes down to. Now let's look at popular places with strict gun control. Places like Japan, Australia, Canada, China, and North Korea. In some of these countries, it is illegal to possession of a sale of a firearm may result in a minimum punishment of 3 years in prison, with the maximum being the death penalty. Can you believe that as an American, that in some countries, you can get a minimum of 3 years in prison and a maximum of a death penalty for possessing a firearm or selling a firearm. Not committing a crime. Well, it's a crime by what you're doing, by the act of selling and possessing a firearm, but not committing a crime such as, going out and killing someone, creating harm, creating, terror within the community. All you have to do is possess a firearm or sell a firearm, and you are illegal. The act is illegal, and you are subject to be in prison. That's crazy by our standards. But overseas, in different countries, that's just the way it is, And that's just, to me, that's just absurd. It's really crazy. So when people say things like, well, look at the other countries, they have strict gun laws, how come we can't be like them? How come we can't be like Japan? Let's be like Japan. They don't have mass shootings and things of that nature. Canada doesn't have all of that. Australia doesn't have that. Look at North Korea. Look at the North Korean leader. He has great control over his people. They don't have none of that mass shootings and none of that. It's a trade-off, people. I'm going to come back to that too, on why, it's important for them for their people not to have guns, And I even give you a little hint. When you look at protesting and things that go on and conflict and economic situations going on overseas and everything, and if you look at how the people, when they protest and versus how the government handle it, it's crazy. You see regular citizens with sticks and stones, and you see the government out there with tanks and rifles. It's just something to think about. So why is gun control always being brought up? Why is it at every shooting, the first thing proposed is tighter gun laws, as if gun laws aren't already tight? Convicted felons aren't allowed to purchase firearms, so the people who have the history of committing crimes with guns are already not allowed to have a firearm. People who have firearms illegally are criminals, but how do you take guns away from criminals when criminals don't follow the laws? It seems to me that tighter gun laws are only making it harder for law-abiding citizens to attain them. That's what it really comes down to. Majority of the mass shootings never had a history of being criminals. Look at the history of these shooters. Do they have any history of being, committing a previous mass shooting? No, nobody can predict this type of stuff. But what about the new proposed idea that mentally ill people shouldn't own or possess a firearm? I would agree that someone who is mentally unstable shouldn't own a firearm. But what is our government going to actually do to propose that? What are we really proposing? Do they want to test every single American mental state? What standard will we be tested at? If you always use a gun throughout your life, and it's an experience because you grew up in a household where using a firearm was a way of life, such as hunting, sporting, farming, etc., and let's say you are being tested and you find out that you might be a little depressed because, let's say hypothetically your grandmother passed away. Does that make you unsuitable to possess a firearm? If so, can your judgment, can it be overturned later down the road? So you see, like, these type of questions should be discussed if you're going to be eagerly accepting a new proposed law. A law that sounds very much unconstitutional. Think about how stressful life is and how all the things that you could be worrying about can make you unsuitable to possess a firearm. Stress, worrying, those type of things affects your mental state. Everybody has something to be stressed out about. Everybody worries about something. Now, you could most likely be dealing with your stress and worries, perfectly fine. You could be dealing with it, find ways to cope with it, working out, just whatever that makes you happy to help balance out your life, you could be handling it just fine. But if the government says that you are mentally unstable, you'll be out of luck, wouldn't you be? You see? Some things to think about. So why is gun control so important to politicians? Like, well, why does it just keep bringing it up? Despite what the media wants you to believe, crime has been at an all-time low. Mass shootings, however, just skews the statistics in politicians' favor, making gun control debate one of America's leading topics. However, gun control is about one thing, and one thing only, people, and that is control. It's easier to control the masses of people when they can't fight back. This is why I brought up tyranny. Our number one reason to own and possess a firearm is to prevent a tyrannical and oppressive government. Being able to defend yourself shouldn't even be debatable. Back in the days when you had before you had the Constitution or whatever, hunting was a way of life. If you didn't hunt, you didn't eat. So this whole debate about, oh, we don't need firearms anymore because, you know, we get our food from the local supermarkets. I mean, whatever. That's out the window. That wasn't the reason why we have the Second Amendment, because it's not. That was just a way of life. That was basic common sense that if you got a gun, you need to use it to hunt effectively and efficiently. The only thing that should be debatable is how oppressive and out of control our government can be. Our government wants to be able to go to war when they please, censor the media and the internet without any resistance, arrest you if they see you as a threat to their agenda, put those who stick together and attempt to fight back in concentration camps or prisons. Have you guys been paying attention with all the wars lately? How all the countries we have been involved with just happen to have an abundance of natural resources that are worth a lot of money. And when I say money, I don't mean in a micro level. I'm talking on a macroeconomic level. So much is at stake now that the economic advantages are just too great to ignore. So people, please understand what you are dealing with. Having the right to bear arms is one of the greatest things we have in this country. It should not be taken for granted, and it should not be given away easily. It's your boy Roz Live. I'm signing out. Peace.